3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Texas Private School Podcast. As always, I'm 1/3 your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson, and I am joined by Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder from College Station and Stillwater, Oklahoma, respectively. Walker, I'll turn to you first. A very, very interesting week in private school football. You went 9-8 in your pick record. I'll just put you on the spot now. I mean, tough sledding a little bit, but once we get into district, there's a lot of upsets, a lot of things are happening.
Yeah.
What do you have to say for that?
I'm at the point now that I'm just like relax. You see, I got my snow cone. You see this? I got the little umbrella, and I'm just chilling here, eating my snow cone and having a good time. I'm out of the pick race, guys. It is what it is. But I'm gonna just sit here and enjoy the battle that is gonna be happening between y'all two, and I'm gonna try to pick as many games as I can.
That is fair. And to speak on that, Ryan, we both went 12-5 last week. You are 91-44. I am 92-43. I probably should be a game better than that, but y'all had some interesting stipulations after that. My controversial switch pick with Kinkaid Second Baptist, but I won't complain about that. I'm still in the lead regardless. Ryan, I don't plan on giving up this pick lead. And if you keep trailing my picks, I guess we're gonna stay deadlocked here forever. Your thoughts on the situation as it stands?
It sucks that, I have to just trail every one of Wes's picks, every single pick this year. What's so funny about last week is literally the fact that we all picked so many different games and so many different teams. Everybody kept talking about how college football, that was the best weekend of college football. That was the best weekend of football by everything, by high school football, by college, by everything. There was a lot of different good games going on, and yeah, honestly, I'm cool with going 12-5 after how many upsets were going on that last weekend.
Yeah, I agree. You haven't had an undefeated week yet, have you?
No, have you?
Any of us have. No, I haven't. I think
no.
you're the only one that's ever had an undefeated week on this podcast.
Yeah,
which is it's a feat I'll be chasing, but I don't know. I mean, with as competitive as some of these districts are, I don't see a way that any of us go undefeated in the coming weeks, but things are crazy. It's possible. But that is all we're going to talk on our pick records. And now, as always, we're going to transfer into our players of the week. And on offense, get ready for this because it's a lot to talk about. Elijah Kaysen from Fort Bend. That was wrong. In the Texas Private School Podcast Offensive Player of the Week, Elijah Kaysen from First Baptist Academy, a class of 24 wide receiver. Elijah in the first half had 5 catches for 155 receiving yards and a touchdown. In the second half against Weatherford Christian, he had to switch to quarterback due to injuries, and they were down 35-13 at the half. After switching to quarterback, he went 10 for 12 passing for 209 passing yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. He also had 15 rushes for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns, bringing his total to 6 overall. He also rushed for the game-winning touchdown and 2-point conversion to beat Weatherford Christian 50-49 in overtime. I saw this on Twitter and I immediately knew this had to be our offensive player of the week. I mean, Walker, this is absolutely ridiculous. Not only having a great game just in one half at receiver, but then switching to quarterback and leading your team to beat one of the title favorites in D4. Your thoughts on Elijah Kaysen just going insane for First Baptist?
Yeah, no, he's a really good player, man. He's kind of been on my radar a couple of years. He actually was, I believe, the son of a coach, Coach Kaysen of mine back in freshman year of high school. And he has that NFL pedigree. He's a really good player, really great man as well. And his son has the athleticism and the height, the weight, the speed to be the big time player that he is. And he showed it this past weekend. He is the type of guy that you kind of expect on that team to be like, hey, let me go to work. Let me give me the ball. Let me do what I need to do. And they have a lot of playmakers on that squad, but he's just one of the big time guys. And he made a lot of big time plays to bring over an upset win over Weatherford Christian. And yeah, shout out to him, man. He's a great player. Watch the film from this past week. He's electric. He's fun to watch. And also selfless, right? Like making that switch is not an easy move for any guy, and being able to make that switch to quarterback and doing what he needed to do for the team, that's a big, big thing. And respect to him, man. Congrats.
Definitely so. Ryan, your thoughts on Elijah Case and just crazy game for First Baptist?
That's absolutely nuts. I was following on Twitter this game, and I I just did not know what was happening back and forth. The game was going into overtime, and I saw that Weatherford scored first, and so I was like, all right, First Baptist, they're probably going to push it to second overtime if they score. No, they said, we have had Elijah all game, been being a wrecking ball. We're going to have him go out there and go get the 2-point conversion and win it. Something that I think my college team should have done this weekend. But honestly, they went out there and they got it done, and they did it all through him. So great game, Elijah, and you showed how to put the team on your back in this situation.
Definitely so. So congratulations to Elijah Kaysen and a fantastic win against Weatherford Christian. Now, moving on to our Texas Private School Podcast, Defensive Player of the Week. Senior defensive end Whitfield Powell, the Colorado State commit from Regents, had 9 tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, and also 2 tackles for loss against Hyde Park in a commanding 42-0 shutout win. Walker, Whitfield really led the Regents, the very stout Regents defense, in this dominant win against Hyde Park. Just an absolutely packed stat line. A stat line I feel like you as an offensive lineman would not want to face off against a guy like Whitfield Powell. Your thoughts on this dominant effort from the senior?
Yeah, not at all, man. Whitfield was a guy that I remember right after his sophomore year, I was told about, and I went down when we were doing the interviewing tour. He came in, talked to him, and I was like, all right, this guy has the size, the speed, the athleticism, and to be kind of that force. And they all told me, they're like, hey, man, watch out for this kid. He's going to be the real deal. And hey, look what he's doing now. Colorado State commit, D1 bound, and big stat line. In a game, battle of 6-0, 6-0. He had to come ready to play against Hyde Park, and he did just that. And so congrats to him on a big week.
Definitely so. Ryan, your thoughts on an absolutely dominant game by Powell?
Yeah, it says on his profile that this weekend was 2 strip sacks and 3. He just went out there and had a madness of what's it called of a weekend. That's a great work coming from on a team like Hyde Park that that obviously has had some success this year. Really just kind of like sticking it to them, and was part of the reason why obviously this Regions team had the win that they had. Without the turnovers that Mr. Powell is causing, you're not going to be able to win a game like that 42-0.
No, definitely not. But congratulations to the Texas Private School Podcast Defensive Player of the Year, Whitfield Powell. And moving on, before we recap our 5 games of the week from last week, we're actually going to take a look at the scoreboard and discuss just some of our very quick thoughts on the contest from last week. Parish Episcopal demolishes San Antonio Cornerstone. I would assume all of you had that on your Texas Private School bingo card. Prestonwood beats Nolan Catholic pretty badly. St. Joseph's gets Brownsville St. Joseph's gets a 1-point win against Austin St. Michael's, which is huge for them. I actually picked that to happen because I knew how good St. Joe's has been this season. Huge win for them. Grace Prep won in a forfeit against TCA Willow Park, so a very interesting development there. Covenant Christian beats Brook Hill 28-14. Big win for a very, very good Knight squad that's been having a fantastic year. Kinkaid wins 20-17 over Episcopal School of Dallas. We will actually talk about this further at about the midpoint of the episode and the implications this has for SPC 4A, because now it's just a big, jumble at the top of SPC 4A. Let's see. St. Thomas beats Concordia 35-7. Grapevine Faith destroys JP2, who is just in a free fall as a program. Bishop Dunn beats Legacy 50-28. I'm sorry, Ryan. And then John Cooper beats Houston Christian 26-21. So, Walker, I'll turn to you first. Is there anything else on this scoreboard that you want to touch on before we get into our games of the week?
The shootout that was Bishop Lynch, TCA Addison. I know, Ryan, you were keeping us up with that one, and you were just like, they scored, then they scored, then they scored, then they scored. It was just back and forth, and TCA Addison comes up on top, so that's a big win for them. Argyle Liberty, travels out to, was that at Midland, or was that, and that they travel out to Midland, and that's a closer game, a 10-point game, and Midland's always known for their defense, and they kept.
No, that game was at Liberty. Sorry, I have that backwards. That was at Liberty. I'm realizing midway through this because I watched the live stream the entire time, and yes, you're completely right. The Liberty was just dominant, but yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
just scratch like the last like 6 seconds of what Walker said, and everything else is valid.
well, like, Midland's always known for their defense and they keep things close a lot of times. And they kept it into a 10-point win, which, I would think with that offensive firepower that they have at Liberty, you would think they would be a little bit more, but 10-point win is still good, but not maybe what we expected. You already talked about the St. Michael's. I mean, I've betted that's my last time betting on St. Michael's, man. I mean, it's kind of dumb for me, man. I've backed that team for too long, and finally trying to get healthy. And I don't know how many more excuses you can make for this team, but I hope the best for them. I hope they're fully healthy, fully ready to go against Regents, because they need that one and a couple more to even make playoffs now. So they have to get the last couple wins ready to go. Assertion, that's a close game against Country Day, which is they're like right on the edge of some of those big games, but Country Day just can't pull it off. We already talked about the Kinkaid. Shout out to that Kinkaid student section. That was really, really fun to watch when that one video of them scoring winning that game. And Dallas Covenant going down to D3. You lose to DC, but still beating another one of those D2 teams coming down in Brook Hill. So that's a big win for them. And Ryan, I'll let you finish it off.
I will say before Ryan starts, I need to touch on Grace Community beating Coram Deo 50-37. It's my alma mater. I forgot about it, and I have to touch on that. Also, it's funny. I was talking to Walker before we started recording, and I mentioned that Luke Newton, the senior from Coram Deo, threw 600 passing yards and 5 touchdowns against Grace. And Walker was like, "How do you give that up and still win?" I'm like, "That's how Grace has been since I played there. We're going to give up about 650 or yards of total offense, but somehow we're going to put up 700 and still win. It's just how Grace does things." But go on, Ron.
Yeah. Obviously the main games, the D4 matchups that are happening this weekend, Sacred Heart and Temple Christian. This is an undefeated Temple Christian coming into this game playing Sacred Heart, but sometimes when you get faced with Ryan Swarzinski, there's not a lot you can do. And the weather for a First Baptist game, already talking about that one. That game was absolutely nail biter. Came down the edge. Y'all already heard it. 2-point conversion for the win in overtime. And yeah, I was going to touch on the Covenant Brook Hill game. This is a Covenant team that is also 7-1 right now. From what I understand, only loss being to DC. And basically they've destroyed every team they've played. So Covenant is just coming in and showing how great of a team, they've been this year. The one thing I want to talk about is St. John's and Legacy School of Sports Sciences. Walker, it was telling me on the live on Twitter, on the Twitter thing on Friday night, he goes, "Yeah, I know this guy, and this guy from Legacy School of Sports Sciences," and I'm like, "Of course you do, Walker." And like, because I heard of them for basketball, but I've never really heard of them for football. Well, this Legacy School of Sports Sciences team came within 2 points of the St. John's team that we thought was going to make a contention for SBC 4A. What do you guys say, Walker?
The quarterback that I was telling you about, the 2026 quarterback from Legacy School of Sports Science, Keyshawn Henderson, 6'2", 160. He's already got an offer from UTSA. You're welcome. Continue.
So, yeah, I mean, I know this team very well from basketball. They're basically a prep school, and Walker and I both described them as basically a prep school. But, yeah, they were 2 points away from beating St. John's. And, yeah, St. John's is – I don't know, man. I don't know how to describe St. John's at this point. And then the last game I was going to touch on, we already touched on, it's the Search and Forward Country Day. There's really a large gap between John Cooper and the other teams, I feel like, in SBC 3A. And I think that's – starting to come very, very clear after Cistercian, lost by a lot to John Cooper, and now Cistercian's playing all these other teams in SBC 3A pretty close.
Ryan, I saw Legacy Sports Sciences play basketball over Christmas break this last Christmas.
Yeah. They were insane, probably, I'm guessing.
They were ridiculous. It's just so funny because they were playing Bullard High School. And, Bullard's just like, it's like a 4A school, just a bunch of white kids. Everyone there was just like, it was like small, they were playing in the smaller division. So it was like smaller private schools, and like it was private schools and smaller public schools. And they just roll in there. There's like Jarrett Valencia, who's going to go Power 5 somewhere. There's Deontay Thomas, who's also going to go Power 5. And then Fred Ward is either going to go Power 5 or G5. And I got one clip of Jarrett Valencia on a putback. That's just absolutely crazy. But that just reminds me of just how like just funny it was to see Legacy Sports Science just roll up into the Wagstaff Classic in Tyler, Texas, and destroy everyone.
Yeah,
But
there's something else, man.
dude, I hope I see him again this Christmas. I got some really good clips. But moving on, that's actually all we're going to recap with our scoreboard. Now we're going to move into our 5 games of the week from last week, starting with the rival in San Antonio, Central Catholic at Antonian. Junior quarterback Jace Toscano throws for 323 yards and 5 touchdowns as Antonian routs rival Central 42-14. Both Ricky Gonzalez and Riley Strode caught touchdowns from Toscano as the young bucks from Antonian have grown up and are proving to be a force to be reckoned with. Strode caught 4 touchdowns and had 163 yards, and just Antonian, I mentioned before, I'm incredibly high on them. I really think they have the possibility to make some waves in D1. And I'm going to start with a sidebar here so y'all can answer this. Walker, I'll ask you first. With the huge matchup against Houston St. Thomas in the last week of the season, do you think Antonian has what it takes to shock the world and knock off D1 favorite in the South, Houston St. Thomas?
I'm going to say they have a shot. Yes. I definitely do think that the offense that they had, especially in this one, was just amazing. 42 points on that Central defense is very, very good. We talked about it beforehand. Jace Toscano, Riley Strode had a really, really good game. And I said it before the season. I said it, all this. I think Riley Strode's one of those underrated guys in that 24 class, and I really, really like him. Or 25, maybe. But big time player. Those guys are just really, really good dudes. Mike Moreno, the 25 off running back, is one to watch too. Bode Ferguson, like we always talked about. Those are good guys over there, man. I believe you lose the older Toscano brother. You lose Ty Short going to Cornell. You lose some other guys, and they still, look honestly kind of maybe better. Some of those young guys have, 1 year more, and they're looking really, really good. And I think if any team has a shot in the South to kind of match St. Thomas, might be Antonian Prep.
I have to agree. Yeah, you were right. Riley Strode is a 24. But Ryan, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think Antonian has what it takes to be able to knock off Houston St. Thomas in that last game of the season?
Actually, before I looked this up, I was actually just going to say straight up, no, they don't, but they do. They definitely do. If it was any team, it would be them. But you have to stop Johan Cardenas. There's no question about that. This weekend against Concordia Lutheran, I know we're not going to talk about this game, but I was just going to bring it up. He had 4 touchdowns in that game. It's just you have to realize when they didn't even have 400 yards of total offense. Wasn't even anything that crazy, and he's got there, having 158 yards himself. If you can stop him, then I think you win that game. But yeah, Antonian is definitely the best. Definitely the team, if there was a team, would be them. There's nobody else that's going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think you put that perfectly. I think if there's anyone, it's Antonian. But just seeing that St. Thomas team in person, Walker, you can agree with this. They look massive, and they are athletes literally in every position. It's hard to fathom anyone beating them in the South, but if anyone can, I think it's Antonian. But moving on to the next game to recap, a rivalry in Austin this time, Hyde Park at Regents. Regents progresses to 7-0 after putting Hyde Park in the crib and rocking them to sleep 42-0. The night defense held Hyde Park under 100 yards of total offense on the night, negative 17 yards on the ground, and a dominant effort by the Regents defense. Defensive end Whitfield Powell ended up with 3 sacks and 1 forced fumble on the contest. As we mentioned, he was our Private School Podcast Defensive Player of the Week. The Regents offense leaned very heavily on senior tight end Tyler Quo, Jack Burkle, I think. I really am not going to pretend to know how to pronounce that. And then Chili Sire. So a bit of a mouthful trying to pronounce the 3 names of the guys that produced offense for Regents. But Walker, Regents just in a game that we highlighted as a game of the week, they won 42-0. Hyde Park had looked good at this point in the season. Shoot, they were undefeated, but Regents just proves they are still the kings of private school in Austin. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah. Regents was the team coming into this game that was the favorites for a reason. They're a really, really good team, one of the best in Division II for a reason. 6-0 was fantastic, and they beat St. Michael's, and they beat other teams that were really good. But you're coming into the favorites, the top dogs, and they showed why they're the top dogs this week. I'm intrigued though. how they respond. Like, does Hyde Park be like, oh no, are we back to what we are? Because I hope they don't, because I think they're a good squad and they have the right potential to move forward. They just have to keep the mindset of, oh, this is just Regents, this is the top dog. Sometimes games just don't go your way, and you have to keep winning games and have the mindset for next week. So I'm excited to see how they do the rest of the season. Hopefully get into playoffs and maybe cause some noise. But Regents, comes back and is the Regents we expect him to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume we're going to see any regression from Hyde Park. I just think that's how good Regents is. Ryan, your thoughts on Regents just destroying Hyde Park in the spot?
Yeah, Regents absolutely shows that they're the team that has the potential. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, they're most destined to go 10-0, and like I don't think they have anybody else on the schedule that's really gonna put up a fight. However, when it comes to Hyde Park winning out, I don't think they win the next game against Brownsville St. Joseph. I mean, Brownsville St. Joseph has just shown how good they are week in and week out. Let's just make it very clear: Brownsville St. Joseph was only 10 points away from Regents. You just beat St. Michael's. You're going to play Hyde Park, and then your last two games are against St. Anthony and TMI. Brownsville St. Joseph is about to put on a really good season. So honestly, I think you have a really tough game against Brownsville St. Joseph next week, Hyde Park, and if you lose again there, it's like you're losing your spot in district at this point. You're going to be the third team coming out of your district. I don't know. Very good start to the season, but you just play some hard teams in your district. Maybe some that you didn't expect. Maybe you expected Regents, but yeah, this Brownsville St. Joseph team has snuck up probably on you for Hyde Park.
Ryan, what do we talk about this weekend about jinxing things? I think you're doing your best effort to jinx Regents' 10-0 effort in district. But no, in all seriousness, I'll double down and agree with you. I think Regents hasn't lost a district game since like 2015. One of y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I don't think that loss comes this season. To close out their season, they play St. Anthony's, TMI, and then St. Michael's. St. Michael's was a game that we thought was going to be interesting before the season, but now I don't know about that, but maybe not. Something weird could happen, but I'm gonna have to agree with Ryan and guess that Regents wins out and goes 10-0 on the regular season. Moving on, we have a game that our own Walker Lott was at, Fort Bend Christian versus Second Baptist, a game I was horribly on the wrong side of. Walker, detail what you saw in Houston this past Friday.
What a game. Nothing that we expected, and I'll say this. This is the first thing I have to say. We know who the king of that district still is, and that's Second Baptist, point blank, period. They showed why they're the kings of that district year in, year out. And the one loss to Fort Bend last year just wasn't what you expect. Was like a outlier, right? For Fort Bend, offense was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. Dever wasn't the best. He didn't have the best night last week. And even when they put Kobe Sellers at Wildcat, they could not run the ball with him at all. So it was just the defensive line for Second Baptist held strong. The front seven held strong. They ended the game with a touchdown pass to Gardoni that makes Brady Dever have 99 total touchdowns on his career now, one away from 100. So we'll probably see that next game, but we'll see how it goes. The star of the game, though, is the 23 athlete Kyle Cormorgan, scoring 3 touchdowns with his legs, one with hurdling a man to score. And if you haven't checked that out, go do it. Go watch that, please. You can see the bunnies by Cormorgan. And he also made big time plays on defense, making a big, third down stop here and there. I mean, he is the real deal, guys. Running a 4.5, 6'2", 190, I think, like that, maybe even 6'3". He's just bigger, faster, stronger, and he is the real deal. If colleges are not looking at this kid, I've said this a lot for a lot of dudes on this podcast, but colleges need to look at this kid. He is the real deal. He will be an asset for your team. He's a good guy. He's a leader for that team. He's just passionate and loves to play the game, man. I really, really loved watching him play last week. He's going to be a steal for any college. There were some other guys. JD Crisp was a special player for Second Baptist. I think he's a Division I caliber player. Turner Murdoch didn't have to do a whole lot because he had Cormorgan and Crisp to just do what they needed to do, but he did make one pass to Grayson Gando. I know that's not how you say his last name, but I don't want to mess it up. So Grayson Gando for the score, but he's 6'2", looks like a good quarterback that could play the next level. There was a 78 offensive lineman, Reginald Lee, a 2025 offensive lineman for Second Baptist, comes in this year at 6'8", probably around like 290 to 300 pounds. He could be one to watch going forward. He has all the tools and the tangibles to be something. 2025 running back Bryce Butler was one that I was very, very impressed with. The player, he takes over for Eli Smith last year, and now it kind of hands it over to him, and he'll be the guy going forward. Arrow Brown was one that mentioned. I have to give my flowers to Jackson Powers coming over from Fort Bend Christian and having to transfer over. You're playing a lot of guys, and you held your own the entire game. And I mean, hey, he was having a good time with it. I know that true. He was chirping. He was having a good time. Hey, you got to give it respect, man. He locked down Gardoni and others for most of that game. And I mean, all fair towards him, man. Respect. For the other side, I mean, Kobe Sellers looked impressive. Bennett Warren looked impressive. Max Granville, I challenged because I thought he could get multiple sacks on this offensive line. He didn't do that. He got a tackle for a loss. I think it was his best thing. But he still looked impressive. Wes, he kind of looks like a shorter Fadil Diggs type. That's how I would describe him as a player. But they have a good squad there, talented squad, but they just didn't put it together. Short and sweet, ending it here. What is the mentality of Fort Bend going forward, right? You just got shown who's still the king of that district handedly. Offense wasn't there at all, even with Sellers or even with Dever. Second Baptist ran the ball all night, basically, right down your throat, and that's not a good for any team. So, is this just another mishap of a game where you didn't do to the level you're expected to, and your mindset's like, all right, next one we're going to do better, or is this kind of what is going to be the Fort Bend of this year with all this talent, and that's going to be interesting to watch.
Well, I'll tell you what, regardless of what their mindset is now, we're going to get shown what it is this Friday against the Woodlands Christian.
I want to give a credit to that. The ref show in that game was rough, and it was bad most of the night. The penalty, the no call for the touchdown for JD Crisp's run was huge. I think that was a clear as day touchdown. There was a lot of pass interference calls that were weird. There were holdings, offsides, just so many things that you're just like, why are they calling this and all that? So I understand Fort Bend might be angry about that, but I don't think that's what cost them the game at all. But I want to give credit because the refereeing in that game was really, really rough, and honestly, sometimes both sides too. So it was a rough game for that. But continue, Wes, because I just wanted to make that known because even that one play for the I was told that on that run for JD Chris touchdown that was not called. They said it was a knee, and the refs told the guys that, hey, don't lose anything, on a knee, which, Wes, me and you, we know that you really don't mess with the guy when they're knee and going into half, but then they faked it. And so it kind of was like, it's a whole weird thing, right? Like refereeing it also sucks, right? Because private schools get the last pick in refereeing around the state. And that's also an issue because you don't always get the best crews. And Wes, I know you and I have dealt with some refereeing crews that have not been the best. So, but that's part of the game, man. And you just kind of have to live with it and kind of beat those odds, plus beat the team you're playing.
There's a few refs in 7-on-7 that almost threw me out of 7-on-7 for some things that I said because of how bad they were. So that's one day I will tell that whole story, but that day is not today. I'll keep my comments brief. I think we're going to learn more about Fort Bend Christian from this loss than if they had won. They're immediately playing TWCA this week in a game that's going to decide who finishes second in this district and is very important for playoff seeding. One of two things are going to happen. Fort Bend Christian is going to feel sorry for themselves. They're going to completely explode after what is quite frankly a bad loss, and they're going to splinter, and the season is essentially going to end here. Or they're going to come out, they're going to beat TWCA handily and finish the season strong and pray they see Second Baptist again at some point in the playoffs. It's what's going to happen. There's one of two roads that Fort Bend Christian can take, and it's going to be on Coach Black and that coaching staff and the leaders like Dever and the rest of the seniors to get them on the right path. Ryan, your thoughts of the outtakes from this game?
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick. I mean, my intramural refs are pretty bad, but you don't see me complain on a weekly basis. No, I'm just kidding. No, Yeah, I just think this Fort Bend team, although you what's called you lose this game, like you've shown that you are on the up and up, right? You've shown that you're getting back to it. Um, I just think that Second Baptist. I looked at their schedule. Their 4 losses are like they packed their schedule this year, just like packed their non-district schedule. They played Prestonwood, they played Bellaire, they played Houston St. John's, they played Houston Kinkaid. They literally just said, "Hey, can we play all the Houston SBC teams?" But literally they were like, "Hey, we're gonna pack our non-district schedule to prepare for Fort Bend and district and all that, and just like wipe our district." And they're showing that right now. They're now 2-0 in district. They're playing Lutheran South this weekend. You could really see this Second Baptist team go 6-4 and then go prove something in the playoffs. So I don't know. Obviously, you would have to beat you'd have to beat Regents in the playoffs to advance to the championship, but I don't know. The Second Baptist team looks good, and if Fort Bend doesn't pull around in the playoffs and beat them, then we're really not going to see. If one of these teams can't prove to be the best one on their side of D2, and in Houston, then no one's going to be able to put up a shot at Regents when it comes to like playoffs. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say before we get out of this game, as of now, from what I've seen from both of those teams, Regents rolls both of those teams easily. I mean, I haven't seen anything from Second Baptist or Fort Bend that shows me they would put up even a fight with Regents. But we'll revisit that once we're further down the line, closer into playoffs. Moving on into the second to last game, we're going to recap TCS Lubbock at Fort Worth Lake Country Christian in a game that was supposed to be a good close one between two undefeated squads. TCS covers the 18.5-point spread and then some by routing Lake Country Christian 49-0. Texas Tech commit athlete Marcus Ramon Edward had 5 touchdowns on the night, and TCS Lubbock, I mean, that offense and defense, the whole team is a well-oiled machine. They're just, I'm not going to say rolling ball of chainsaws right now is still just a term that is unique to Dallas Christian. And I mean, if TCS Lubbock, if they can dethrone DC in this district, that term might need, or in this division, that term might need to fall on their shoulders. But Walker, TCS Lubbock just absolutely kicks the tar out of another undefeated team. Your thoughts on their dominant effort this week?
They're good. I got to give them credit, man. I picked against them. And that was absolutely positively the wrong decision here. And that was awful. Awful pick by me. I trusted my Fort Worth guys, and that's the reason I have the pick record that I do. Anyways, big win for them. Marcus Ramon Edwards is the real deal. We saw it last year, and he's proven again why he's a Power 5 commit at the Division 3 level. Big time player. But other guys like Eli Reeves is this 24 quarterback who's done pretty well for them. Eli Davis, 6'2" or 6'1", 170 player. And then also Cade Hayes is 6'2", 215 as a junior. Yeah, I've looked into this team a little bit, man. And then Hunter Maston, Zach Anthony, they have some really good players, man. That, I mean, if any team that could cause some chaos against DC, it might be them in the playoffs, man.
I don't want to give away anything right now. TCS Lubbock might be the favorite in D3 by what I've seen right now. Ryan, your thoughts on TCS Lubbock just kicking the tar out of Fort Worth Lake Country?
We said it last year when we saw Marcus Ramon Edwards. Like, we just know, like, he is crazy. He had, so from what I understood, he had 4 rushing touchdowns, but then also returned a punt for like 60+ yards. So like, he's playing, I mean, in D3 you play multiple sides of the ball, I get it and stuff like that, but like, still, it's so impressive. He is just so elusive, and I'm looking at all this stuff. He's putting in, I'm guessing over 200+ yards a game rushing, around each game. He's having an incredible year. And yeah, it's the exact same reason why he's going to go to Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is getting a steal of a guy in D3. I bet there's a bunch of teams that don't even know about who this Marcus Ramon Edwards kid is, and Marcus Ramon Edwards could turn into whatever position they want him to be in college. He is just an athlete. So shout out him, and yeah, Walker said it best with all the other guys that I don't really know as well. However, I want to see this team play, man. I want to see this team play a lot, just because I want to see Marcus Ramon Edwards again. Obviously, we saw him last year in the D3 championship, but it was, I don't know, it wasn't enough for me. It was not enough, and obviously they ended up losing that game to Cypress, but still, he's been a dog ever since then. Now I knew he would have a crazy senior year.
Bonafide dog. I cannot wait to watch him this Friday. We will detail that a little bit further when we get to previewing that game. But as for the last game, we're going to recap Fort Worth All Saints versus Southwest Christian. All Saints gets a much needed win here. I mentioned their backs were against the wall, and essentially they had to win this game. They get a 37-21 victory against SCS last Friday. I for some reason picked Southwest Christian, who let me down. Walker, I'm not too pleased with your alma mater. That was a game I needed to put a leg up on Ryan in the pick record, and just failed me in that spot. You're the Southwest alumni. I want your thoughts on them losing 37-21 to All Saints in this spot.
Yeah, I had a guy there that was sending me updates about the game, so I'm gonna kind of look through that as notes. In the first, with 10 minutes in the first, it was 14-7. Antoine was taking names, doing what you expected him to do. And then another score by Antoine with a huge play by Maddox McCarroll puts it up 21-7. And then they even made the Eagles get a stop on the Saints 6, and they settle their own 6, and then All Saints settled for 3 to make it 21-10. And then All Saints came out the second half and just were what you expected. Kickoff return to the house to make it 21-17. And then this is where the kind of unraveling comes around in the fourth quarter. All Saints scores on a huge pick 6, 24-21. And then there was a second pick 6 to make it 31-21. And then, so that's the key of the game, right? It was honestly SES's to lose, but 2 pick 6s in the fourth quarter, that's hard to come back from. And that was huge for SES. That's, it's interesting because this is the first year, Wes, that they kind of went back to throwing the ball a little bit, and in a big district game, it just kind of took them away from it. Took them away from the win. All Saints quarterback Jalen Spriggs makes a great throw to seal it 38-21. And I was talking to the guy, right? I was like, what do you think was the keys? What happened? What were the big things? He said the quarterback playing the Saints offensive line. SES really made them lose. They lost to themselves. And that's interesting to see. All right, adapting the new offense, and maybe not working as what we expected it to do in district. The 2 guys who did the pick 6s, Will Parrish and then Javon Williams, the 23 athlete. And I expected those guys to do it. The touchdown pass at the end of the game was caught by Danny Hojdea. I don't know how you say that. But those are the guys that, played their part in that game. Honestly, looking at the stats and looking at it, that's SES's game they lost. And that hurts for me to say, because that's a game that they wanted to win. But 2 pick 6s, that can't happen. They just can't. And that's the key of the game, basically. That was the turning point for the All Saints Saints. And yeah, they came out on top.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be growing pains when you make such a massive transition from such a run-heavy offense to trying to pass it more. Things like that are going to happen. They suck. There's no way of saying it any other way, but you have to get through those growing pains as you're implementing new things. Ryan, your thoughts on All Saints getting a big win against SCS here?
Yeah, 20 points in the fourth quarter. That's what Walker was talking about, and it's just I feel with you, Walker. The same thing happened this weekend to my team. 21-14 going into halftime. We're only down by 7, and then we give up 2 pick 6s in the second half. And it's there's not a lot you can do from the defensive side of things, because you get tired. You keep going back on the field, and if your offense is throwing pick 6s, then you're causing yourself to have to play more defense. And I feel like that's a struggle for my team, and it might be a struggle for Southwest Christian this year. But you kept them pretty well, under wraps in the first half. They only scored 10 points. Don't score in the first quarter. but yeah, I don't know. Just something about this All Saints team that I guess they worked their way back. Defense helped them out in this game. But yeah, this is something that this is you know in this district. It's so funny because I would have thought both these teams would be almost like heading into playoffs for sure. And now I'm kind of questioning whether they're both fighting for that third playoff spot at this point. So it's kind of interesting. And this might be the difference between who gets the playoff spot.
Yeah, definitely so. It's going to be very intriguing moving forward to see how that shakes out, but it will have to shake out one way or another.
I'm worried. I'm worried for SCS's chances in that, man. Being real.
It's always weird watching games as an alumnus of a school, just the absolute dread and nervousness you get whenever they're in a tight spot like that. But that's a spot I will also be in, Walker, so we'll be right there together. But that actually concludes the 5 games we had to recap from last week. And we will now, before we get into our games of the week that we're going to preview, we'll touch on some other news. And one thing has to be Kinkaid beating ESD and the current status of the SBC 4A. As of now, Kinkaid outright has first place as they are 2-0, and then Episcopal is 2-1, and ESD is 1-1. Basically, what's going to happen this week depends on if Kinkaid beats Episcopal. If Kinkaid beats Episcopal, then Kinkaid will outright have first place, and Episcopal and ESD will be tied for second. If Kinkaid loses to Episcopal, all hell breaks loose, and there's a 3-way tie for first. And I forget what the point the tiebreaker is in SBC. I want to say it's point differential, but we'll see. But Walker, we have an absolute just kind of a cluster storm brewing in the SBC. What do you think? We'll preview the Kinkaid Episcopal game, but what do you think of the whole situation that's arising in 4A?
This is chaos, and honestly, I want chaos. I would gladly want chaos. And I want a 3-way tie at the first and see how it goes at the end of the year. I mean, I think, Episcopal is a big team right now, and they're on the up and up, and they're ready to go. And they want ESD in the state championship again because they believe that game should have been theirs with all the the controversy and stuff like that. So that's who they want. But Kinkaid, the state championships from the past 3 years plus maybe are coming back for vengeance and saying, hey, we're not done anytime soon, and we're not a team to just be trifled with. And Micah Bell is the real deal, guys, and he is showing why again and again and again. ESD now, right? How do they respond? The undefeated regular season is no more, not like last year. And, finally, when they go back and play these teams again in the regular season in the championship, they lost. You lose now in the regular season. So hopefully they have that all right, we got to adapt and ready to go for the rest of the season. Because these now games are going from, all right, we could lose maybe one and we could still make it. No, you got to win every single game now. All 3 of those teams now have to win every single game or you're out. This is huge.
Yeah, there's literally no room for error. Ryan, your thoughts on the storm that's brewing in the SBC?
So we talked about this on the space on Friday night, and I keep saying that, but if you haven't joined our spaces, we talk about a lot of different things. We talked about the BCS type thing that's happening in SBC right now, because they just take the top 2 teams and they put them in the championship. There's no Final Four, no nothing, and the 3-way tie is definitely something that's going to be different this year.
If you're gonna do the BCS style college football playoff, just do a college football playoff and do the best 4 SBC teams and just make that a playoff.
Right.
Just do that. That's much easier.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that's what needs to be changed, because right now you're in a situation where all these teams are going to beat each other, and hopefully this is what happens. But if I'm going to be very, very real, I would love to see just ESD play against Bellaire again in the finals, because all of us want to see that game again. I bet both those teams want to see that game again against each other, just because, I know Bellaire wants to see that game again, but I think both those teams want to see that game again. And not to, anything on Kinkaid, but, Kinkaid is kind of a one-man team and it's been a 2-man brother situation for the past couple of years, in my opinion. Obviously Paulo Bianco or whatever, but I would Paulo Bianco. Yeah, Paul Venchero is what I had in my head.
Hey, that's not a bad name to have on your head.
But all I gotta say is, yeah, it's just honestly this Kinkaid team has been made up of just these brothers for a couple years. It'd almost be nice to see something refreshed, to be something new in the SBC 4A championship. But I 100% agree. Until they change this into a CFP type format, it's going to be horrible. And I don't agree with the whole situation of having a BCS style and 2 teams play. Especially the season ends so early. They end their season November, like the first week of November, 4 days into November. It's like everybody else is still playing football till December.
Like playoff time is the best type of football, and you're kind of
Right.
getting away from those kids having those opportunities. Firstly, so do college football playoff. Do the 4 best teams since there's only like 6 in the division, and just do that. That would be probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, SBC hire us. We have ideas.
Now, here's my question. Okay, this would be a good question, guys, for that no context count. So whoever runs that, you should do this.
Yeah.
If it comes down to a 3-way tie at the end of the season, what is the best way that is not like actual stats to prove that the 2 teams that should go to the state championships? Like, should it be like a rock paper scissors tournament or Hunger Games? That's a good one.
You nominate who you think is the best survival candidate on your
Patrick
team,
Burke.
and they all fight to the death.
So Patrick Burke is now going to go fight Micah Bell, and which is like it's like a 3-way.
And so Carson, do we think it's Carson Gordon free agent? So it's Patrick Burke, Carson Gordon, and Micah Bell. We just drop them. I think the Woodlands would be a good place to drop them heavily. No. We take them all out of their comfort zone to East Texas, to the piney woods of East Texas. Drop them straight in meth country and just let them fight it out to the death.
And what's the goal? Like to the death. That's really good. That's really good.
Okay, so
guys,
Southwest Preparatory Conference.
Let us know what you think the Southwest Preparatory Conference should do if it's a 3-way tie. And I want wrong answers only. I don't want actual stats. I want wrong answers only.
Because as of now, I mean, we just made the rule. If there's a 3-way tie, we're taking Micah Bell, Patrick Burke, and Carson Gordon, and they're fighting to the death. I'm sorry, that's just what's happening.
Yep.
moving on into what actually we're now going to make a weekly segment that I'm actually very excited for. We're playing a game. It's called "Does Dallas Christian Cover the Spread in Their District Game?" Because it's not even worth trying to pick if DC wins or not these district games, because they're going to destroy everyone's. But we're going to, for just DC this week, Dallas Christian is playing Brook Hill. They are favored by 27.5 points. I think that's at Dallas Christian as far as I know. But I personally, I'm gonna take DC to cover a 27.5 point spread. I would honestly cover it much higher. I think they destroy Brook Hill in this spot. Walker, your thoughts?
Can't believe I'm doing this, by the way.
Listen, you're on a podcast with me. I'm going to make you do something with sports lines.
I think they'll cover. I think they cover that spread.
Ryan Schroeder.
Yeah, I'm gonna say they cover as well. I mean, that might be disrespectful that we all just said,
with no hesitation. None of us even took 2 seconds to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of logic behind it. I just know Dallas Christian's good at football, so I think they'll win the football game.
Hopefully,
I love Coach Ryle and all them down at Brook Hill, but DC's gonna put a 60 burger on them.
Yeah, hopefully Jonah McCown and company can cover the spread and hopefully even win that game, man. Props to y'all. Wish y'all the best.
They win the game.
They won't. Moving on into,
you want to put your house on it?
I'll purchase Michael Jordan's mansion and put it on that game. I'm pretty confident on that. Moving into our that's going to end up as a screenshot somewhere. Moving into our 5 games of the week for this week. The first one, a game that involves 2 former schools of members of the podcast, Grace Community at Legacy Christian. Grace is 6-1. Legacy is 2-5. Grace is a 10.5 point favorite in this matchup. And in a pivotal game with playoff implications, Grace will take the bus up I-20 to Frisco to take on the 2-5 Eagles. These 2 teams have had very different starts to the season, but they may be closer than the records indicate. Grace began by running through every podunk UIL school that East Texas had to offer until running into a hacksaw in the form of Grapevine Faith. Legacy started 2-0 after beating Oak Ridge and Dallas School for the Blind, but has dropped their last 6, most recently a 50-28 defeat at the hands of Bishop Dunn. I mean, listen, Grace is in a bad spot following that Faith game. Legacy is in a bad spot, period, as a program. I still think Reed Alexander, Jamarion Johnson, Nick Stewart, Luke Wilson and company get this done. I think it's going to be closer than people think, given the records, but I think Grace wins here. Give me the Grace Community Cougars. I'll let Ryan go last since it's his school. Walker Lott, your thoughts on the game?
Do we know what we all two are betting on this game? Like, what's the situation here?
What if I pick Grace? Like, I don't.
Oh, you can. No, I picked. I don't
see,
even.
This is the thing. It's like well, Walker, you just go first. Because
Grace. All right, Grace, continue.
I will say it would be unfair. I don't know how fair it would be to bet straight up on the game, and I'll say this for Ryan because Grace is favored in this game. Although I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I think Grace is as good as people think given the record because those UIL schools are bad.
Here's the thing. I think at this point, and I've heard from some people at Legacy and talking about this, is exactly what I said earlier. The defense is doing what they can to set up the offense, but the offense is not scoring. The offense is having a hard time putting the ball in the end zone, while the defense is going out there and forcing turnovers and doing what they can. But the offense can't get first downs for Legacy. And I'm pretty sure there was some crazy stat on the Liberty game where, like, basically we couldn't even get a first down for who knows how long or whatever it was. But I have to think in my head that, like, this Bishop Dunn game, we had a chance. We were really, really close in the first half, only down by 7. But yeah, we threw two pick sixes. I don't know. I don't know enough about Grace, but you know what? Screw it. I'll pick Legacy. I'll pick Legacy in this game. Now, is it our homecoming game? Oh, it might be our homecoming game, y'all. You know what? This is the thing. Maybe homecoming wise, that may change something up. Hopefully, maybe these guys play for something more. But yeah, right now it's looking downhill, and I've only heard things at this point where we have 2 shutout losses now, and it doesn't look like we're going to be scoring any more points. And if this is the game, you would now have to be Grace and you now have to be Coram Dale in order to take that 3rd spot. And if we go to playoffs this year, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. So all I got to say at this point now is that I think Legacy wins here, but only by 2-3 points. It's going to be the closest game you've ever seen in private school football.
Okay. We can workshop this right now live. Is there anything, Walker, what would you think would be a fair bet between the two of us?
Goodness gracious.
Okay. So next week is Halloween week.
Correct.
We're doing Halloween costumes.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all two get to decide the costume for the other if whatever your team wins.
Yeah.
If your team loses, the other person gets to decide it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about Stillwater, Oklahoma. You're gonna have to give me options I can have at Walmart
you got Amazon. You have Amazon too.
True. I could do Amazon, but
so
yeah, whatever. Yeah, I guess I can find it off Amazon. And you can what we saying winter buys. Or
sure, we'll figure that out. But winner picks at least.
Yeah, please subscribe to the website to
fund to fund the Halloween costumes. But yeah, I like that. So winners the winners team picks the loser's Halloween costume.
Yeah. No,
okay, perfect. I like that. So keep up for next week to see who will be wearing what after Grace beats Legacy Christian. Moving on into the next game to preview Grace Prep at Trinity Christian Lubbock. Grace Prep is 4-3. TCS Lubbock is 5-2. Trinity Christian is a 21.5 point favorite in this game. I will say, just to give some context, I got a text let me pull it up. This was last Thursday out of the blue that said, Where was it? It said, "Hey man, next Friday, would you want to fly up to Lubbock and watch Trinity Christian play Grace Prep?" So my cousin has his pilot's license, and he's mentioned it a few weeks ago. He's like, "Hey, I can fly out to West Texas one week because I know y'all have games up there that y'all want to go see that y'all obviously can't drive to." I was like, "Sure, yeah." I just didn't really think. I thought that was something that we would say and never come back to. Well, he texted me that, and I was like, heck yeah, I want to fly to Lubbock and watch a game. So, long story short, I will be in Lubbock to watch Grace Prep and Trinity Christian play, and I am so incredibly excited to watch that happen. But in terms of previewing the actual game, TCS has won their first two district games by a combined 97-0 in dominant fashion, needless to say. Senior athlete and Texas Tech commit Marcus Rowan Edwards is an absolute monster. And with junior quarterback Eli Reeves and junior running back Eli Davis and Cade Hayes, the Lion team appears unstoppable at the moment. Grace Prep, however, is no pushover. Jalen Talton, Caden Lehue, and Cole Mathis make up a very talented Lion squad who are more than prone to play spoiler in the situation. However, I just can't see that happening with how dominant Trinity Christian has been this season. I want the Lions. I want the points. I want the smoke. They're going to cover the spread. TCS Lubbock wins this game. Walker Lott, your thoughts?
You just moved your camera every time you hit your desk,
Did
by
I
the way.
really?
Yes, you did. So now I really like this Grace Prep team. You know, Jalen Talton's my guy. You know, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in all of Division III and all of TAPS, all of private school, all that. But I think after last week's just dominant performance by TCS Lubbock, I have to pick them here. So I'm going to pick TCS Lubbock here. I think Marcus Rowan Edwards is the real deal. Looking into the offensive line, some of their athletes, one guy I just noticed while looking into this team, right? Brady Scott, 6'2", 200, 2024. Like they got some dudes over here, man. And everyone else we already mentioned before. I mean, this team is pretty good, man. So yeah, give me TCS Lubbock.
Ryan Schroeder, your thoughts?
I'll keep it short and sweet. I'll give you 3 words. Marcus Ramon Edwards. That's actually one name, 3 words, but yeah, I said 3 words, so I'm not going to talk anymore. Marcus Ramon Edwards.
Fantastic. Yeah, I would have to agree. I think TCS Lubbock gets it done. I can't explain to you how excited I am to fly out to Lubbock and watch that game. I really want to see that.
I hope your B reel goes off mid-flight.
Mid-flight, dude, that'd be so hard. That would be awesome. Okay, moving into the second. I hope that happens now that you said that. Moving into the third game, we're going to recap. And how we mentioned this at the midpoint of the episode, it's going to be a big determinant in SPC 4A. Episcopal Houston at Kinkaid. Bellaire Episcopal 6-2. Kinkaid is 5-3. Episcopal Bellaire is a 1.5 point favorite. Well, now we're in one big pickle thanks to the Falcons. If Episcopal beats Kinkaid here, then there's one gross 3-way tie for first. I'm going to have to dig into the rule book to refresh myself on the SBC tiebreaker specifics. But that is one big if. Micah Bell and the Falcons have been playing inspired football as of late, knocking off the 4A title favorite ESD last Friday. This Kinkaid rushing attack is ferocious and has no regard for human life, and the defense is as scrappy as it can be. It is going to be an absolute war on Friday when EHS rolls into town. However, Episcopal is still the same talented team that we were high on rolling into the season. Carson Gordon, Lane Linebarger, Andre Thompson, and Madden Morgan are among the top talent in private school athletics, and will try to prove it against Kinkaid this week. Listen, man, Kinkaid this year is one of those teams. It's like how I've said about Midland in the past. I want to stop picking against them because they're really good, but they keep playing really good teams. And I am honestly terrified that they win this game. I'm going to pick Episcopal. I don't feel good about it. I'm really nervous about it. And I pray that at least one of you pick Kinkaid, because if we get mean to death again for the triple against Kinkaid pick, I might just pass away. Walker Lott, your thoughts?
You see, I want to pick Kinkaid, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to pick Episcopal. I think, as you know, Wes, right, watching Kinkaid live, I wonder if one of their quarterbacks is back, but Kinkaid is a very run-centered offense led by Micah Bell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they face a lot of teams, but the one thing that Episcopal has really well at is a defensive line led by Hutch Coward and Jason Otah. And I think those guys and the rest of the defensive line and those linebackers are going to come ready to play, and they're going to do a pretty good job of stopping the run. And so because of that, I think EHS is going to win this game.
Ryan, my brother, you have to pick Kinkaid here, please.
No, I won't. And and this is what I'll say, because you can't be mad. You cannot be mad because
I can be mad.
No, you're not going to be mad. You're not going to be mad. And I'll tell you why. Because in my opinion, Walker's exactly right. The EHS, how do I say this? The EHS defense is good enough to stop Kinkaid and good enough to stop Micah Bell. So the offense is going to be able to put up the points on the board, and I honestly think that they win by a touchdown. I mean, I don't think that's that crazy to say. Yeah, if I had the line, I'd put it at 6.5 favorites for Bellaire. I just think I think either ESD is kind of the team that, that was kind of, I don't know, because people are already talking about the fluke loss to Bellaire for ESD and all that kind of stuff. So honestly, I think we can now say that Bellaire is like the top of SBC, and I have Kinkaid at the third position in my opinion, just like from a opinion standpoint. And I think Episcopal wins this game.
We're so screwed.
We're not screwed.
We're
actually
screwed.
No, we're fine.
This happens almost every time we do this. We're screwed.
We're chilling.
We're screwed. Moving on into the second to last game we're gonna cover.
You have to remember. You have to remember, Ryan. This is the mindset of like a gambler. Everything's gonna go bad until it doesn't. Like that's the mindset of Wes Tolleson.
Yeah, I'm not very good about what was it? I was jinxing stuff this weekend. Yeah. I clearly had to learn some stuff this weekend from my fellow gamblers. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Listen, man, I'm the most superstitious person on the planet, and that really gets exacerbated in situations like these. Moving on, the second to last game we're going to cover: Fort Worth Trinity Valley at John Cooper. Trinity Valley is 6-2. John Cooper is 7-1. John Cooper is a 17.5-point favorite in this game, and this point blank period is the game of the year in SPC 3A. New kids on the block, Trinity Valley will head south into the woods to spar with the Dragons of John Cooper. Both teams are 4-0 in district, and this will be the first of two meetings as they will face off again in the SPC 3A title game in a few weeks. Trinity Valley is a fantastic story. 3-6 and finishing 5th in conference one short year ago, the Trojans are a new team in 2022 behind sophomore standout quarterback Gavin Parkhurst. Trinity Valley is averaging almost 40 points per game and are only allowing 23. However, 53 short yards across the field awaits the incumbent. John Cooper picked up this season like they never left. Senior quarterback Vaughn McKeever is still one of the most underrated prospects in the greater Houston area, as well as Texas private school football as a whole. Add in Kyler Sullivan, Dean Calhoun, and Alonzo Barranquilla, and the Dragons have no intentions of relieving that SPC title they hold so firmly. But, this is a different year. Trinity Valley looks very, very good this year, and I don't really see a situation that I can pick against. I'm having a vision.
Oh, okay.
John Cooper 42. Trinity Valley 28.
Okay.
Gonna be the score of the game. John Cooper wins.
Did you just have like your "that's so Raven" moment that you just
I went into a trance. I saw Vaughn McKeever throwing a lot of touchdowns and Keeler Sullivan and Alonzo Barranquilla going crazy. 42-28. It's gonna be the score of the game.
I like your vision, Wes. And you know what? Sometimes you have to believe in the vision, believe in the miracles, and you got to believe in the possible. And you know what's possible to me? I think what's possible is I think a Dean Calhoun breakout game here in the Woodlands this week. I'm thinking 3 touchdowns, maybe 4 touchdowns for Calhoun. I think this man is about to go off and cement himself as one of the best players in all of private school in the 2025 class. I think he's the real deal. I've said it all year, and I think instead of maybe Vaughn McKeever going off, I think it's going to be the Dean Calhoun game, and I think he's going to show why, A lot of people are downing this kid to be the best and the best. And I really like Galvin Parkas. I think he's an amazing guy. Pepe Reagan, all the other guys, Carter Lee, all those dudes. They're a good team. But Dean Calhoun is going to make it a mission to prove that I'm right about him and all these guys. So, Dean, go show him what's up this weekend.
That's such a tease. I thought you were going with Trinity Valley.
Yeah, I think
Ryan-
we're going to Trinity Valley too. I was so confused, and then you said Dean. I was like, all right, whatever.
All right. Ryan, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, and just chalk me up for John Cooper. I don't really know. I think there's such a far gap between John Cooper and the next team. I'm having a vision that John Cooper wins the SBC 3A title. And call me crazy, but I don't think that's that weird of a vision.
No, I think that's a very good pick to make. All right, so we'll go through our last game so Ryan can get out of here. Central Texas Christian, who is 6-1, at Shiner St. Paul, who is 4-4. St. Paul is a 15.5-point favorite on this contest, and Central Texas Christian is one of the most improved teams this season, regardless of classification. After going 4-6 last year, they currently stand at 6-1 and look to make a run at the district title. And with running backs like Reagan Ragsdale and Ethan Allerkamp, that is entirely possible. However, St. Paul is still the 4-time defending state champions, and they have the talent and coaching reflective of that. And as much as my heart wants to pick Central Texas here, I have to side with my brain and go St. Paul. I think St. Paul beats them in this spot. I know St. Paul, a lot of people have jumped off the ship. They haven't looked as dominant this season. I still think they get it done. I still think they're a really good team. Give me St. Paul in this game. Walker Lott.
Yeah, I'm going against you. I'm going Central Texas. Yeah,
I love it.
I know. I think this team is good, man. And Shiner hasn't proved to me that they're what we expected them to be this year. And I think Central Texas Christian is 6-1 for a reason. They've beaten some pretty good teams. And before that reason, I'm going to go with those guys, man. I think they're a promising team down in Division 4 in the South. And they might see this might be the team that gets out of the South this year and faces all the big dogs up in Division 4 from the North. And hey, they might be the sneaky team to cause some havoc up there.
I agree. They well could be. Ryan Schroeder, break the rubber here. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, Shiner is 4-4, but this is a team that has beaten D2 TMI Episcopal. They have beaten the Sacred Heart team. They lost Sacred Heart, but it was only by 10, and they beat Legacy Prep 49-6, which is a team that, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 7-point game for Central Texas Christian where they won. They both won, but clearly a blowout by Shiner St. Paul. And I know the transfer popper doesn't apply, whatever. All right. I think it applies because this is clearly a blowout by Shiner, and it was a close win for Central Texas Christian. Give me Shiner in this game.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. My entire pick was based off that game, the transitive property, which is probably going to fail me. But we will see. It will be interesting. So we have 2 on Shiner, 1 on Central Texas Christian. And with that being said, that actually concludes all of our content for the episode. So, I mean, we have a very, very fun week of football. I will be in West Texas watching Trinity Christian this week. I'm so incredibly excited to see that game at Grace Prep. I know I've said it a billion times. But, I mean, without further ado, this has been the Texas Private School Podcast. I have been 1/3 of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder have fantastically, excellently, whatever adjective you want, been themselves. We will see you in the next episode. See you later.
3, 2, 1.